Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider TV. As you heard, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Oh, man, they do great work for our community, bringing in tourism and great events, and we're proud to be associated with them. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Welcome into the program. Well, the Alabama Crimson Tide's second scrimmage was this past Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and Rodney, it included more offensive fireworks than scrimmage number one, and we've got to kind of go back and look at the scrimmage. Rod, you weren't there. I was not there. Media not allowed in, but you've got a lot of sources. And you told me on my radio show on Monday morning that freshman wide receiver Kobe Prentice was probably the MVP. He showed out, as did the veteran wide receiver Trayshawn Holden. Good day for the first team offense. Good day for the first team offense. Our defense as well. Second teams, Coach Saban not real happy with them, but overall he seemed pleased with what he saw out there on the field at Bryant-Denny.
Yeah, you know, look, I think Kobe Prentice has had two big scrimmages for sure, but I think Trayshawn Holden was probably the big name in this scrimmage in terms of the receivers. Gary, he had 3 big touchdowns, 45, 60, 75 yards, 2 of those against the first team defense, although Coach Saban said overall the first team defense played extremely well. First team offense, he was really said they were very productive too. It's the second teamers that he talked about that they needed to make a lot of improvement.
Yeah, and that first team offense with Kendall Randolph starting ahead of Javion Cohen at left guard, but they are, according to people that you talk to, and me too really, the first team offensive line has really come on and is showing promise to be a really tough unit this year.
You know what? I think that's a huge key because I think this team has a chance to run the football better. I think when you look at the running back situation with what they have with Gibbs and certainly Jace McClellan, Trey Sanders, and some of the other running backs they have, if this offensive line can come around, they can really complement that passing game, allow the receivers a little bit of time to develop. This has a chance to be a really potent offense.
And defensively, big news, and that Will Anderson Jr. held out of the first scrimmage in this one. Rodney, you were told he had 3 sacks.
Yeah, a lot of people were concerned. Why didn't he scrimmage in the first scrimmage? Well, Will Anderson was there, and he made his presence felt certainly in this scrimmage.
You know about Anderson, you know about Dallas Turner, you know about Chris Braswell. Pressure off the edge is not going to be a problem. The concern has been getting pushed up the middle with that defensive line, those interior defensive linemen. But, man, they got a lot of talented players, a lot of experience, a lot of numbers there. So it feels like they're going to be able to find 6 or 7 guys to man the middle of that defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, certainly you have Justin Aboibe. He's back. He's played the better part of, this will be his 4th year. Same with Byron Young. You know, obviously you have Jamil Burrows, DJ Dale. You know, we could go on and on. The true freshman, Jaheim Otis, has certainly made a big impact. I think Tim Smith, this could be his breakout year as well. So a lot of numbers there. I think that's probably the strength of this defensive line.
We're going to get to the inside linebackers in a moment because we're going to hear from Jalen Moody. But in the secondary, I guess the big news is that, once again, redshirt freshman Terrion Arnold started the scrimmage at corner along with Kool-Aid McKinstry. That means that Eli Ricks, who is a preseason AP first-team All-American, voted on by the nationwide media panel, did not start there at the cornerback position. He's been banged up and such, but again, when you got a guy at that level of talent and he may not even start for you and he's a preseason All-American, that says a lot about your secondary.
Yeah, I think the key here is the fact that, of course, transferring in, he wasn't healthy when he got here. He had a lot of the physical rehab to do, and certainly also learning the defense, Gary. A lot of changes from what he played in, the defense he played in at LSU. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Terrion Arnold has had a good camp. He certainly made a lot of progress. You know, but again, you need to get Ricks healthy. You need to get Kyrie Jackson
Kyrie Jackson also banged up, and he didn't start, obviously, as we said, McKinstry and Arnold. But Arnold's made a big move. Whether or not he starts or not in game 1, I think all 4 of those corners will play, don't you?
I do think there's a good chance of that, certainly. And I think, listen, when you talk about Terrion Arnold, you're right. He was a 5-star player coming out of high school, guy that a lot of people projected as a safety. But the fact that he's really made that adjustment to corner is good news for Alabama.
At inside linebacker, obviously, Henry To'oTo'o's the veteran. He's a starter last year after transferring in from Tennessee. He's the signal caller. And next to him is Jalen Moody. But he's having to hold off Deontay Lawson and others. And Lawson is pushing him hard. Moody said today that he likes the competition. It makes everybody better. He also said that learning from a guy like Henry T is great for all of the linebackers because Henry T is a super mentor.
I mean, Henry is a really smart guy. You know, I wouldn't he does a lot of tremendous things, and I couldn't even just say off the field. I mean, on the field, but just off the field, you know, in the meeting room, you know, just seeing him, how he diagnosed the plays and, you know, break it down with the younger guys and me as well. You know what I mean? I can definitely see that he's very intelligent on the field as well as off the field.
Rodney, I'm not going to lie to you. I think you know me well enough, and I've told you this many times. I'm pulling for Jalen Moody.
Yeah.
You know, guys that come here that hang in and don't necessarily get the early playing time or get that self-gratification that they're looking for. You know, he went in the portal. He pulled out of the portal. Listen, I love Deontay Lawson. They're going to play probably 4 inside linebackers as anyway. But those 2 that start, I hope Jalen Moody's one of them alongside Henry T. I do.
He has bided his time. And also, Gary, when you look at him coming out of high school, he wasn't the kind of if you want to say, the typical Nick Saban 4 or 5-star recruit. I mean, he was a guy that they found late. Pete Golding was on top of him, certainly. Out of the state of South Carolina, he's been a good player when he's had his opportunities. You remember the Arkansas game in 2020. First play of the game, Christian Harris goes down. Jalen Moody comes in, has a really big game, very productive, calls some turnovers. He certainly has a lot of talent.
Let's go back to the scrimmage. I did not mention the running backs. Obviously, led by Jamar Gibbs, who's a second-team AP preseason All-American, along with Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Trey Sanders, and the freshman Jermaine Miller. Now, we never get too confident with running backs because we've seen it around here before. They can go down in a hurry. Last year, you got one time down to Brian Robinson. But this group, and there's been some great ones around here. I know what I'm saying. But I think this group, if they stay healthy, can rank up there with any of them that they've had around here. This is a super talented group of running backs.
You know, you mentioned they were down to Brian Robinson last year, and he wasn't even healthy. In the SEC championship game, he might have been 85% with that hamstring injury he had. But this is a really good group. Certainly, I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he's just a different back, Gary, when you talk about style.
Yep.
And Jace McClellan, when he's healthy, and now he's healthy after that year last year with the knee injury. Trey Sanders, Roydell Williams has run really well. The true freshman, Jamarian Miller. So, yeah, it's a stacked running back room.
And at tight end, clearly they've got some guys that are going to help, but they need Cam Latu back out there as soon as they can get him healthy.
Definitely need Cam Latu because he's a guy that can block, but he's also a really good receiver. I mean, he's set the Alabama all-time record for tight ends with 8 touchdown receptions last year. So certainly you hope that he can get back, and I think he probably will by next week. Nice
recap, Rodney. Thanks. Now it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama head coach Nick Saban and all the coaches going through that second scrimmage last week and liking what they saw. Here's the head coach saying that there's a lot of improvement that went on between the first scrimmage and how they got together and executed in scrimmage number 2. Saban says that the younger guys on the team are not used to practicing like this, and the decisions they make are going to impact them on the field and how they come along in terms of their development.
I think everybody's got to ask themselves, you know, the choices and decisions you make helping you get closer to your goals or further away. So that's just a habit that we got to create. If we're going to be able to accomplish something of significance this season, it's not going to come easy, and people are going to have to make sacrifices to do it. So we'll see how many people we can get to do that. I think, you know, some of the older, experienced players understand that. I think some of the younger guys that we need to come along, need to be able to play winning football, need to make progress, you know, in those areas.
All right, and a contract extension for the head football coach of the Crimson Tide today. The Alabama System Board of Trustees Compensation Committee approving a contract that is once again going to make him the highest paid coach in college football. Kirby Smart took that honor, for a few months. No way the GOAT is going to play second fiddle to Kirby Smart when it comes to money. Hey, you know what? It's going to total out to be over $11 million when the contract is over, averaging out, Ronnie. But listen, I understand that's a lot of money. It's crazy money. You know, it's nearly $1 million a month on average. But this is a guy who's won 6 national championships since 2009, 8 SEC titles. This enrollment is nearly 40,000 students. That has a lot to do with Nick Saban. You know, maybe some of these other guys around the country don't deserve this kind of money, but he does.
He definitely does, Gary. And you know what? They have him to thank for the big money they're making.
And through 2030, the new contract. On my radio show today, of course, everybody's saying, well, how long is he going to coach? I've been saying all along. And again, I don't really worry about it. That's why we don't talk a lot about who's going to replace Nick Saban. Or, you know, the bottom line is he loves what he's doing. He doesn't want to do anything else. He's just 70 years old. This is 70 years old today is not what it was maybe 50 or 60 years ago. And he's certainly not a typical 70-year-old. As long as he loves what he does He's doing it well. He enjoys the challenge. I just don't see him slowing down. He's not going to coach forever. I understand that, Rodney, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if we look up in 8 years in 2030 and he's still the head football coach at Alabama.
Yeah, let's hope he's still going very strong. You look at him, Gary, a lot of people thought that this recruiting class, that it was going to be really difficult for him because the NIL, the changes. Yep. Hadn't slowed him down.
Yeah. All right. We mentioned this earlier. Alabama stars Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr. among 4 players from the top-ranked Crimson Tide selected to the Associated Press AP All-America team. Joining Young, the Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback, and Anderson, the best defensive player in the country, were Alabama defensive backs Jordan Battle and Eli Ricks as first-team selections. Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs made the second team as an all-purpose player. Remember, Ricks and Gibbs are brand new players at Alabama. Also, guard Emil Ekiyor was a second-team selection. Alabama's 4 first-teamers and 6 players on the 2 teams overall were the most for any school. We're used to that. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television. The Rashinda Reed era starts for Alabama volleyball. We'll preview their big opening weekend. And Crimson Tide football scores big once again on the recruiting trail. Man alive, they need a defensive lineman. They got one last night from Kansas City, Mizzou. We'll have the details when we come back on TITV, and we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets a little bit later on in the program. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. There's the email address on your screen. You can also tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide Tider Insider TV. Welcome back to TITV, presented by our good friends at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. With Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. New week, new Tide football commitment to break down on Tider Insider TV. 4-star defensive lineman Edric Hill of Kansas City, Missouri announced his commitment to Alabama on Monday evening. 6'3", 280. He's a really good interior defensive line prospect. He chose Alabama over his other finalists, LSU, Missouri, Oklahoma, Oregon, and USC. He moved up his commitment date. He basically said, hey, I couldn't wait any longer. I had to get on with it, and he did. And he now is the 21st commit in Alabama's 2023 recruiting class, which is ranked number 1 nationally. But, Rod, I'll tell you this, Alabama needed some defensive linemen, even as good as this class is, and they get a big one last night.
Yeah, I think he is, Gary. I look at him, I watched his tape. He reminds me a little bit of Fedarian Mathis in high school, a guy that I think after a couple of years of development, he can be really, really good. He's got the right attitude. I know that his high school coach is very high on him. They've developed a lot of players and sent them on to college, and he thinks he's one of the best he's had. So I think this is a really big pickup. You team him with Hunter Osborne. That's a good start on the defensive line. And listen, I know a lot of Alabama fans are concerned about the defensive line recruiting, but there is still in on several guys. I think that they're going to have a really strong defensive line class when this is all said and done.
Yeah, and they're recruiting a lot of other defensive linemen. One name, though, that's popped up recently that Alabama's really making a push on is Davion Hobbs out of North Carolina.
I like Davion Hobbs. I think he's what an athlete. He's a guy that if you look at his tape as a tight end, he's unbelievable, but he's so athletic. Got great speed, a guy out of the state of North Carolina that probably has been leaning to North Carolina, but Alabama's made a really strong push on him as well. So he's a name, Davion Hobbs, to keep an ear out for.
Yeah, keep an ear out for him for sure, and an eye out. Maybe he'll be committing soon to the Tide. You never know. All right, Alabama volleyball is ready to start the season. The Rashinda Reed era getting underway this Friday and Saturday at Foster Auditorium for the Crimson Tide Invitational. Other teams in the field, McNeese State, UTSA, and Southern Miss. Alabama faces McNeese on Friday at 12:30. Then Friday night at 7 takes on UTSA and closes out the weekend against Southern Miss on Saturday at 3 p.m. at Foster Auditorium. Alabama soccer a couple days away from the home opener. Crimson Tide hosting Southern Miss on Thursday night at 6 p.m. at the soccer stadium. Alabama's 1-1 after splitting matches on the road with Florida Atlantic and Miami down in South Florida. And the Tide is looking forward to getting home and having a good season. Well, coming up on Tider Insider TV, one Alabama commit is not wasting any time showing off his talent in the beginning of his last high school season. And up next, we're taking your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-9882. Tider Insider Nation, we want to hear from you next, right here on TITV.
Here at Buford, I got 3 other running backs going on with me. Traylon Maddox, he's going to be a dog. Justin Baker, going to be a dog. We all rotate, and I love it because we're all fresh, and we all get to eat.
In a clash of titans, last Friday night, Alabama commit Justice Haynes and Georgia's powerhouse Buford High School ate well in a 38-7 win over Alabama powerhouse Thompson of Alabaster. Haynes scored 2 touchdowns. One of them was on a long kickoff return. Look at that, Rodney. You talk about skill. That's against a big-time defense right there. Balance, power, speed. Roddy's got it all.
Quick feet. Wow. The way he bounced out of that tackle. Yeah, a lot of balance, Gary.
He had a little fun after the game, too. He said, yeah, I had my man Tony Mitchell, my fellow Alabama commit, coming after me. I wasn't going to let him tackle me. So, but that was really two great programs last Friday night. And Justice Haynes and Tony Mitchell both committed to Alabama from Buford and Thompson, respectively. All right, it's time to head out to the phone lines. First up tonight is Rachel over in Clay. Hey, Rachel, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Fine. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Well, I was calling and inquiring about the reigning 6A state championships and what your thoughts and your perspective on them and their Alabama commit in boxing, and how do you predict their season to go this year?
Well, Clay Chalkville's loaded. I mean, that Hueytown team, I'll be honest with you, Rachel, I didn't think anybody would beat Hueytown last year. I mean, they were averaging like 60 points a game. Clay Chalkville beat them, and it was an incredible game. And the young man that she referenced that's already committed to Alabama in the class of 2024 in Bachway, he's a big-time player, big-time athlete.
Bachway, great player. You know, Gary, they really handled Briarwood Christopher Vizina, the five-star quarterback there, had less than 100 yards. You know what? Everybody I talked to about this Clay Chalkville program tells me about that offensive line they have. Really good high school offensive line. They have a young center named Pierre White, who's an outstanding player as well. So, they're a powerhouse program, no question. Yeah,
really, really are, and could win it again this year. And thanks for the phone call there, Rachel, over in Clay. All right, let's go up to Northport and talk with David. Hey, David, good evening. How are you?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Doing great, man. What's going on?
I'm good. I'm just wondering, in this transfer portal era, what is the future of walk-on programs at a major university like Alabama? Is it less realistic now for a guy to be able to walk on and actually see playing time when all they have to do is just go pluck a player from another program? And will we see the end of some walk-on programs at some universities?
David, it's a good question. No, I think the role of a walk-on will always be vital because regardless of whether there's NIL, transfer portal, or whatever else may be going on in college football, there's still just 85 scholarship players right now. Could they go up in the future to 95? Maybe so. But right now with 85 scholarship players, there's still a place for walk-ons. And, I'm going to be honest with you, portal or not, it's always a long shot for a walk-on at a program like Alabama to get playing time. But it does happen occasionally. They're still going to recruit walk-ons. They're still going to have them as part of the program, and they're a vital part of things. Maybe we don't always see it, but during the week on the scout team, getting the guys ready to play, always going to be room for walk-ons, in my opinion.
Well, they just held a walk-on tryout last week. So, I'm with Gary on that. I think there's certainly room for opportunities to walk on, and I think they'll remain.
All right, we're going to come back with more TITV, more of your phone calls, emails, and even a tweet. There's the phone number, 205-348-9882. We'll be back with more right after this on WVUA 23. Alabama softball is hiring Lance McMahon as its next pitching coach. And that was confirmed today by the University of Alabama. Head coach Patrick Murphy bringing McMahon in from Illinois. He also coached at Missouri and LSU, so he's got SEC experience. He'll take over from Stephanie Van Brakel, pro throw, who's leaving to become the head coach at Memphis. McMahon led his staff's last 3 seasons at Illinois to sub-3 ERAs. That's good. So that was a job that a lot of people applied for. Lance McMahon coming in to be the pitching coach for Alabama softball. And welcome back to TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It is going to be time for our KDM Service Corporation email of the day, and it's actually from Twitter. But it is our email of the day, thanks to KDM Service Corporation. It's from Goal Line Stan, and he wants to know, do you see Bama's 2022 offense, Rod, being more balanced with run and pass? Will Bryce Young have more passing yards than last season? Well, they were pretty balanced last year. Remember, the running back injuries really hurt, but still Brian Robinson had a big year. I think they'll strive for balance, and I think they'll have it. Yeah, I think they will strive for balance. I do think this has a chance to be a better running game. I think the offensive line has a chance to be a little bit better. I think with those backs that they have, I do think that Alabama's going to run the football really well. And I think it's going to be a concerted effort, too. I think Alabama wants to be more physical in terms of running the football. I think they're going to have big play opportunities with those backs that they have. So I think this is going to be a really good running attack, Gary. But obviously, when you have Bryce Young, will he throw for more yards? Well, he threw for 4,800 yards and 47 touchdowns. That's going to be hard to break that record, but he might. Yeah, thanks to KDM Service Corporation for our email of the day. KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. All right, let's get to an email, and this is in regards to Some women's basketball. We heard about the men's signees, but what about women's new players and the expectations for women's basketball from James in Tuscaloosa? Well, they're bringing in 5 new players, James. I can tell you that. Sarah Ashley Barker, Ryan Cobbins, Loyal McQueen, Elia Nye, and Carly Weathers. Weathers is the Gatorade High School Player of the Year from Tennessee. The other players are transfers, so they've got experience at the college level. Obviously, a lot of interest in Sarah Ashley Barker, daughter of Jay Barker, former Alabama national championship quarterback from 1992, played 2 years at Georgia where she was a really good player from Spain Park High School. Yeah, I think she'll step in. She's dynamic. She can play on both ends. She can really do it all. She can guard. She can shoot. She can get underneath the basket. She can play out on the perimeter. I think a lot of people are going to have fun watching Sarah Ashley Barker. Obviously, the family connection strong.
Yeah, it is, and I think a lot of people think because of that. But listen, she was one of the greatest high school girl basketball players to ever come out of this state in terms of being recruited. So really excited to see her. Yeah,
and Alabama women's basketball the last couple of years really taking steps in the positive direction under Christy Curry. All right, let's get to the break, and when we come back, Alabama quarterback adds a particularly well-known brand to his list of NIL deals. You can guess who the quarterback is. And look at the night here in Tuscaloosa. It's been a little rainy the last couple of days, but still beautiful on the UA campus. We'll be back with news on Bryce Young right after this. Stay with us.
Come on down to Fansville Foam Finger Warehouse. We'll get you fitted for the perfect foam finger.
How many NIL deals does Bryce Young have?
A lot. And he's deserving of it. Bryce Young adding to his NIL endorsements. On Monday, it was revealed that he signed a contract with Dr. Pepper and will be featured in the soft drinks upcoming Fansville campaign of commercials throughout the 2022 season. According to the teaser, which you're watching, the prevalent issues of the day in college football, transfer portal, conference realignment, and NIL are all set to be topics in this year's Fansville commercials. Good for Bryce Young. That's really what NIL is all about. A guy that's on campus hooking up with a great company. It's not about bags of money for recruits, but that's what it's supposed to be about. All right, thanks for tuning in to Tider Insider TV, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight of the show at 10:30 on WVUA 23 or catch it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week on TITV.